Welcome to the RealTea podcast, brought to you by Tennessee Realtors. I'm your host, Angela Shields. This podcast is created for Tennessee Realtors to get the tea on all things real estate in Tennessee. We'll bring you engaging conversations with esteemed guests in the real estate industry and cover a wide array of topics, including current events, governmental affairs, education, and legal updates. All right, today we have a great session for the RealTea podcast. We have a special guest, Mr. Jay Cash, the auctioneer, who is a Realtor member with us as well. But I am really excited about this topic today.
Hey, I'm thrilled to be here. This is such a fun show, podcast to be on, and this is a topic that I think every realtor knows a little bit about, but not quite enough. So let's peel back the curtain and discuss everything anybody's ever wanted to know about real estate auctions.
I'm excited to learn myself.
Let's do it.
But before we let you jump off into that topic, you've probably heard the show enough to know I'm going to ask you this question. We're called the RealTea podcast, and therefore we ask every guest, what do you take in your teacup?
What do I take in my teacup? I have no idea. What did Chris Garrett say on his? I have no idea.
I don't even remember. I'm sure it was.
I like to say his name because he and we became realtors in the same class together, and he's gone on to do some pretty impressive things, and I'm proud to see where he's at. And I think a lot of my success has come because of him and other folks. So I'd like to lean on him and say, what did Chris say in his teacup? What did you put in your teacup?
Well, it depends. Sometimes if I tell the truth, it's usually coffee. I drink my tea at
That's
night.
what I was going to lean toward as well. Actually, it would be just if you're at Starbucks, the green tea. Can I use green tea?
Yeah.
Green tea, extra ice would be nice.
Yeah.
Would that be all right? Let's just go there. No sweetener? That'd be okay.
I'm not a sweetener person.
No,
either.
so let's
I'll
leave the
drink one
sweetener out.
straight.
Yeah,
100% straight.
I'll be curious if something motivational somebody says in that answer or not, but that's a good one.
The one that I remember, I think, that jumps out to me is Hagenstone, because he gets his from Europe somewhere, so he likes the fancy teas, and they are so good.
Oh, green tea, no ice, extra ice. Yeah, that'd be good.
Awesome. All right, so auctions. We've all heard about auctions. And of course, for my mind, what I think about is somebody standing up there that can talk really, really fast. Mm-hmm. So can you do that?
I can do that. That is part of what the job entails.
You have to learn to do that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It's a talent for sure. But so we're talking about auctions and how they come into play with real estate. Tell us, for somebody who might not be familiar, how does a real estate auction let's just start with how it works.
Yeah, so whenever I meet with a realtor for the first time or a seller for the first time, everybody has a connotation of what they think an auction is. But I like to just kind of start with the finest assets in the world are sold at auctions, from automobiles, racehorses, fine art, jewelry. Real estate is no exception.
Right.
So if you've got an asset that's subject to getting multiple offers, if you've got a property that's unique, hard to appraise, hard to comp, an auction can be your best friend if you're a realtor or a seller wants to sell a piece of property. Unique, hard to appraise assets do very well. Anything can be sold at an auction. Any kind of property, any kind of piece of real estate can be. It always comes down to the seller's situation, and that will dictate whether or not an auction is right for them. So when we're talking here the next few minutes, 20 minutes or however, just know that anything can be sold, commercial, residential, farmland, you name it. It just comes down to what is the seller situation. And in the market we're in now, or throughout Middle Tennessee or Tennessee altogether, an auction really will just accelerate the sales process into a shorter time frame where the seller is in full control of the transaction. We set the terms, the conditions, everything is set up front, and it's really the most fair way for a buyer to purchase because they don't have to worry or wonder, what are other people offering? What contingencies are being waived in a multiple offer scenario? You don't have to worry about any of that because the terms and conditions are the same and they're fair for all the buyers. They all compete on a level playing field. An auction isn't always right for everyone, but in most cases, it can be a seller's best friend and a realtor's best friend.
I see. So we were talking earlier about auctions and how it fits with the MLS. So talk to me about that.
If for folks in Middle Tennessee or our friends at RealTrax have been so good to us over the years, it's not perfect. It's not great. It's not the best, but it is so much better than it could be. And I would say it probably is actually one of the best. Could it be better? Yes. In the past, it's been difficult to list auctions on there because there's no set price. If it's an absolute auction or if it's a reserve auction, it's pretty good the way we have it. You got the little toggle switch where you can choose to see auctions within the MLS. But when you talk to other auctioneers across the country, you see how much better off we are here in Tennessee because of our MLS that allows us to input auctions. And I don't think anybody should check the box that excludes them because there are many fine properties from dog houses to luxury houses, all are fit within the gamut of an auction. So over the years, I've seen that grow where there would have to be a list price of some sort, which makes no sense at an auction. So now it's just, auction. It says auction up there. And so it's pretty friendly. I think there's things we could do that we could tweak it. And we're always giving our feedback of how we can make it better. But it's open and it's there and it's a great way to find auctions. And most auction companies are utilizing it. Not all. And that's their choice to do that. But I think you definitely should.
So a way to see everything that's on the market is to make sure you're looking for the auctions as well.
Yes.
So you mentioned reserve price and what was the other one you
Absolute.
said? Absolute price.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
All right. So in Tennessee, all auctions are conducted with the reserve unless stated otherwise. So if you're driving down the road, you see an auction sign, or if there's an ad on Facebook or wherever you see your advertising, if you see auction, you need to assume there's always a reserve. All auctions are with reserve unless stated otherwise. The otherwise would be absolute, or it may say selling without reserve. So that means it sells to the highest bidder regardless of price. There's no minimum bid. There's no reserve or any kind. Whatever the final bid is, that's what the property is going to sell for. And throughout Middle Tennessee, which is where we call home, the majority of our auctions are all absolute. They sell to the highest bidder. There is no set reserve price. And there's reasons a seller should go with an absolute auction. There's also reasons you should set a reserve. And a good, competent auctioneer would be able to explain which scenario would be the best for the particular asset or seller situation.
So what are some of the benefits, what are some of the benefits for going with an auction versus just a regular listing?
Well, if time matters, if at the end of the day, auctions provide confidence and certainty, you're getting the most money. It's not a right way or a wrong way when I meet with realtors. Some of the top brokers in Middle Tennessee, I'm proud to call friends, and we work together regularly because they know how to leverage an auction to get the most money out of a property. You name the city, name wherever it is, I could tell you, an auction will work if it's properly advertised and properly conducted. But why you would want to maybe consider, or a realtor consider, referring a property to an auction is if it's, let's just say, unique and hard to appraise. So I've said that already today. If it maybe isn't in the best condition where it's going to get eaten alive on home inspections and such, that can be a good thing. If you've got a property that is overly improved and there's, again, it just goes back to it's impossible to comp. As good as so many of us are as real estate brokers, it's a guessing game. What is this property going to bring? What is it worth? You don't want to grossly overlist it. You don't want to list, price it too far underneath. And what an auction provides is confidence and certainty. It's bringing its fair market value. As long as it's properly advertised and conducted, it will do that. When you're having an auction, the seller sets the terms and conditions. I kind of alluded to that earlier. You know exactly when the closing date's going to be. The seller will set that with the auctioneer and the realtor. We're all on the same team working together, but we'll set the terms and conditions. How much money is required down? It could be a percentage or a flat rate fee. It could be 10% down the day of the sale. The balance is due in 30 days. There are no contingencies, and that's what is nice about an auction is that a seller can move on with life. They know it's going to sell on Saturday, June 13th at 10 a.m., and in 30 days, it'll be closed and over with. Whenever some sellers have sell of home contingencies, their house is just sitting on the market waiting. Well, an auction forces the market to show up and participate and bid versus just waiting for an offer to come. It also depends on the asset if it's going to be super hot or not of an auction, but it needs to be something generally that people are going to want, a property that's going to be in demand or desirable. Otherwise, you just got to use your judgment on, how well is it going to perform when you have an auction, which is ultimately what everybody wants to know. What's my place going to bring? And a good auctioneer will try to get you in a general ballpark of what that number looks like.
So when you talk about contingencies and such, or are there times that you would have somebody say cash only?
Yeah, so really at auction, it sounds like it's cash only, but I'd say the preponderance of buyers at auctions are always borrowing money one way or another. It could be just a conventional loan. It could be a HELOC, pulling it out of some sort of retirement account or investment account. It's not every auction company may have different tolerances they allow, but for the most part, the majority of good auction companies in Middle Tennessee and the state and the Southeast will allow for financing. It's just not contingent upon it. So if you pay $1 million for a property and it appraises for $900, well, you're going to need to figure out something, or you're going to lose your earnest money deposit. It's not contingent upon it. So financing is acceptable. Most people do. Just make sure you've got your ducks in a row and you can perform within the 30 or 45-day period.
I understand. Are realtors able to be a part of a deal that goes to auction?
Yes. Like I said, some of the best realtors right now, I could just pull up my phone and just start naming top producers in every county in Middle Tennessee that text or call often with properties, and they know how to leverage an auction. So most auctioneers that, not all, but most, will co-op and work with a referring agent if you have a client. So if you got a listing, that percentage or fee could be whatever you want to negotiate with that particular auctioneer. Some are going to be more favorable to splitting it right down the middle, 50-50. It could just be a percentage of whatever the property sells for. But realtors can make a lot of money referring properties to auction, and they get to look like the hero of the deal, of the transaction. You can also make a little bit with the buyer's agent. That's not as much fun. It's a lot more work involved in that, but you can have success with representing a buyer at an auction. Not always, but definitely there's plenty of auctioneers that will co-op with a realtor. And again, it's just like anything else. You could look for title companies, you could look for handymen, home inspectors. There's good in every field. There's good auctioneers, there's great, and then there's bad ones, just like there is. Sure. You've got closing companies and that couldn't even close the front door versus close a transaction. So you got to figure out who the good ones are versus those that need to, probably not be doing what they do.
Sure. Like you said, in every
field's that way. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So are there unique rules that that Tennessee realtors should be aware of when it comes to
having an auction? It is very similar to like when you first get your license as an auctioneer. It's similar to being a realtor. It's similar because it's a state license. It's issued by the state. There's a governing board. There's the, TREC oversees all real estate license. And then there's the Tennessee Auctioneers Commission that oversees auctioneers. So we have the dual license. In order to sell real estate at auction, I have to have a real estate broker's license as well. So we have that, had that for as long as I've had an auctioneer's license. So in Tennessee, you've got to have auctioneer's license and you've got to have your real estate license. And then beyond that, the actual auction, there's tons of nuances that have to be included in all your advertising, similar to a realtor. There's certain protocols that have to be met, and contracts there isn't a set standardized form like we have as realtors with the real estate with TAR. All auction companies kind of have their own different layout and verbiage that's used, but overall there's certain parameters that have to be in every contract. But mainly just have to have your license and know how to stay out of trouble. Don't make any bozo mistakes that will get you jammed up. But no different than being a real estate agent. There's certain rules and code of ethics that we all have to follow. Just like the Tennessee Association of Realtors, there is the Tennessee Auctioneers Association. And that's one of the things I tell realtors to look for when you're going to hire an auctioneer. You want to find somebody that is a part of their state and national association. Why would you be in the industry but not be a part of the one association that represents what you do? Right. Just like there's probably great real estate agents that aren't realtor members, but it makes me question twice. Okay, well, what's up for you not to be, there's a certain level of expertise or competency you're dealing with when you do see that you're working with a realtor member versus someone who's not. And everybody has their own reasons, but I can't think of a reason why you wouldn't be a part of your state or national association. So it's very similar. You got your state and local associations, you've got your state license laws, you've got errors and omissions insurance, and then just, a book full of rules that we have to abide by at auction.
And to throw a random question at you, when you think about auctions, is there a particular story, of course not giving names or locations really, is there a particular story that comes to mind, that favorite story of an auction or anything like that?
There's so many. I mean, I dreamed to be where we are now, where we're I just wanted to have one auction a month when I got started, and that was hard to do. Now it's, we'll have 12 in a week sometimes, depending on how many it is. And there's auctions all over Middle Tennessee. But I tell you, I narrow down the stories to really the ones that matter, where the money really makes a difference, where it never makes a difference for everybody, but when it can be life-changing, where it could be a lot in Dixon we sold recently. Seller didn't know what to do with it, inherited it. Local folks that offered her $40,000. Maybe it's worth $40. It's probably not worth $40. Didn't know what to do with this little lot she inherited, and we ended up selling it for $100,000. Well, that's a lot of money to someone that has never seen that kind of money before. Then there's others where, a farm that you're projected to bring $3 million brings $4.3 million, but it's really just when I find that we have the best auctions for sellers when they're not being needy or not being greedy, when they just want the most. Everybody wants the most money they can possibly get. They're not trying to be stingy about it. They just want a fair market price. They want confidence and certainty they're getting all they can, and those usually make for the best sales. But really, it's just I would narrow it down to when you're making an impact in someone's life by selling their asset for maybe more than anybody thought it would bring. And that's what an auction can do. It will set fair market value. There's many times an auction will far exceed a previously listed price of a property that's been listed. There's other times that an auction can maybe hurt your feelings a little bit because the market says it's not worth what we thought it's worth. And that's why having a good auctioneer that knows how to promote and put the property in front of a buyer base that's willing to pay the most is so important. There's top performing realtors that will list a property and it just doesn't move for whatever reason. And you try to chase it with price reductions and it still just sits there. Then we follow it up with an auction and we have 30 people show up wanting to compete on it. And you wonder, where have you all been the last 6 months? There's nothing wrong. There's no wrong answer. When I sit down with the seller, we're not going to let you make a wrong decision. You're either going to list it or we're going to have an auction, but we're going to let you weigh the pros and cons of both for you to make a business decision, for the realtor to make a business decision. Should we have an auction here or should we just list it? And it will all come back to the seller situation and it'll dictate whether or not an auction works for them or not.
And that's interesting. As I'm listening to you, I'm kind of picturing it in my mind. So on average, how long would you promote it before the day of the auction?
Typically, an auction campaign might be 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
Like if you have an auction and it's going to be 6 months from now, there's no urgency. Why get excited over a property that's selling in October when it's April, so there's no need to promote it or advertise it, but usually it's 2 to 3 weeks of a highly saturated marketing campaign that is very similar to what a realtor will do. Very similar, just different because we don't have to list a price. I think my job's so easy. I don't have to pick a price. I don't have to look at comps. It's going to bring what it's going to bring as long as it's properly advertised and conducted. And that campaign is usually, like I said, 2 to 3 weeks, and it works.
Is there any type of preview period?
Should be. I mean, there's so many things I want to just start rattling about. But yeah, as far as the preview periods, the world we're living in now, all auctions are really turning into simulcast events where there is a live component where you can show up and bid at the property. And then you could also bid online, where it's just a live streaming event where you can see video and audio of the auction, but you could be in Knoxville and the property be in Murfreesboro and you can participate without being there in person. There's a lot of pros to that, but obviously just like selling a house anytime or if you're buying a car, I think it's good to test drive the car you're buying, look at it. There's some people that don't need to do that. They don't have to look at the car before or drive it, or they don't have to see the house, but it makes me feel better. This weekend, we were in Hartsville, Tennessee, and the buyer was online from Colorado. They came to look at the open house twice, had 2 open houses. They came to both of them before, and then the day of the auction on Saturday, they just participated online, which was a lot of fun. They could watch and see it, but they're on a computer, and we had a crowd of bidders in Hartsville participating. So yes, there's always opportunities. Some auction companies are peculiar, and maybe they don't. And if I always say, if you're a realtor or a prospect or a buyer and you're logging on and you're trying to find information and you don't feel warm and fuzzy, or you're confused, or you don't understand the terms and conditions, that ought to be a red flag right there, because it should be very simple. Auctions are simple. They're transparent. Shouldn't be any confusion on what's expected of you as a buyer, or if you're a realtor, what's expected of you. And so I always say, like, if it's making you feel kind of uneasy or you don't know, then start asking questions, or call me or call somebody that you do know that is competent, and I will help guide you through what you should be asking.
Mm-hmm. And are most of the time are you buying as is, or do you get the disclosures?
That is really one of the benefits of an auction, and it's as is, selling as is. That doesn't mean we're there to hide any obvious issues with the house. Like if there's a blatant defect, there's a sinkhole, off the back. We're not going to hide that. All of that is, up front. It's as is, as in the seller's not going to come back to do any kind of grooming, cleaning, or maintenance after the fact. There is no negotiations like that. It's funny how a realtor, no matter who they are, if they put it on the MLS as a traditional listing and it says as is, anywhere in the remarks, people just think, what's wrong with it? Oh my gosh. Or what kind of stigma that causes. And there's no stigma. It's just saying we're not going to fix anything. You're buying it just the way it is. Inevitably, you still will get an offer that's subject to an inspection. It may be a pass-fail, which means they're not going to ask for repairs, but they're either going to accept it or not, which is fine. And we allow that at an auction too. If you want to come in and inspect it, look at it, but we're not going to fix anything. But it's so funny how an auction can list and be as is and nobody questions anything, versus if you put it online, traditionally on the MLS, everybody thinks there must be something wrong with it, or what's the issues here? And there isn't any. It's just the difference of an auction and a listing.
And when you talk about marketing, is it that you have like a base that you market to, or is it marketed to
everywhere? When it's online or around the world, this year alone, we've had buyers from South Carolina to California, which is fun. Colorado was this weekend. 2 weeks ago, we were in Winchester, and all of the bidding, there was very few people in person. Kind of hurts my feelings when there's not that many people show up in person, but the 2 bidders came down to Indianapolis and bidders in Virginia, and it was ultimately just them back and forth and bidding online, and hardly even need me there. Just need a computer to do it. But it can be previewed before and seen before. And yep, exactly.
Wow. Any idea how many auctioneers we have in
I think like licensed in Tennessee. So in Tennessee, there's different levels of your license. There is the bid caller only. So that's the guy that just talks fast, but they're not handling any money. That might be a person that works at a car auction facility that just sells cars. They show up, they sell for 2 hours, and they get a paycheck and they go home. So that is a different class of an auctioneer's license than what maybe I'm doing, where I'm handling money, we're taking earnest money deposits, or we may have an estate sale, we're selling personal property, we're handling money. So our license is a little more restrictive on what we can do and what we have to be liable for when we're handling other people's money, obviously. But yes, I forgot the exact question you just asked me, but I know about licensing and
about how many.
How many? I think, is it like, I don't know. I'm going to get crucified if I'm wrong, but it could be 2,000 or so. It's not that many. It's not that many in Tennessee. It's a pretty small bunch.
How often do you find that the property is with an estate sale where you're selling just everything?
It's often. That's usually the number one call, is somebody's died and they have a lot of stuff to sell.
Yeah.
And personal property is the toughest asset to sell in at least Middle Tennessee. I say that, but I went to Decaturville, Tennessee. Forget what county Decaturville's in. I have no clue what county that is, but we were just down there, and I mean, it was like olden times, had a huge yard full of people, and it's just kind of like a glorified yard sale, selling pots and pans and tools and all sorts of things in the front yard. And it really just fits on the community and where you are. In Middle Tennessee, it's hard to get a crowd to show up. All of the estate sales are done online. It's just bidding online from your computer. You don't come in person. But a lot of the auctions we do are estate sales where somebody's passed away, but that's not always the case. Many times it's sellers that value their time. They value certainty and knowing when they can have a definite date of when a property is going to be sold. They don't wait around for wondering when an offer is going to come. They can set it and force buyers to have to act. And really, I have no clue what percentage of even our business is estates. It's a lot. It's a lot. Tomorrow I'm going to go meet a lady that's inherited 14 properties from her brother, and we're just going to go try to go look at them all, see what all they are. So we're going to be able to sell them all in one setting at an auction. And I know they will bring more money in an auction setting than they would trying to sell one at a time. And then for the sake of just peace of mind, getting them all sold in one setting versus weeks to months.
So if you had someone who was listening that might have an interest and they're thinking about auctioning, sounds kind of interesting. I might be interested in getting into that profession. What would be some tips you might give them?
I would say first go to auctions and visit with an auctioneer and just learn what really goes on. The next thing will be you got to go get your auction license, which is like 10 days, 2 weeks, similar to becoming a real estate agent. You got to go to class for 2 weeks. Most of that is in person, so you got to go to an accredited auction school, pass your auctioneer's test there, then come back, apply for your apprenticeship in Tennessee. In Tennessee, the apprenticeship is only 6 months, which is not long enough, but it is what it is. It's 6 months. And then from there, you're an auctioneer. What's really neat, if you're watching right now, the neat thing about the auctioneer's license is you don't have a brokerage. There's not like a principal broker like you do if you're at name the XYZ Realty. You know, you're an affiliate broker, and then you have your broker, and then you all work with under that umbrella. In Tennessee, every auctioneer is essentially their own owner. They own the company. They are the company. They're not necessarily a part of a big brokerage or whatever. That, you know, each auctioneer, if you were an auctioneer and you had your license, you would be fully fledged. You didn't have to associate with the company at all. You are the auctioneer and can operate your own company. There is no brokerage that you're a part of. There is no longer a firm license anymore in Tennessee. That got removed a few years ago. Trying to make the auctioneer industry more inclusive, more easier. The barrier to entry, they said, was too difficult. And so the state legislature changed the laws on just making it easier to become an auctioneer. Removing the apprenticeship from 2 years to 6 months was looked at as a good thing. Like, hey, it'll be easier. But what we've learned is 6 months isn't long enough to learn anything. You know, there's some folks that get their auctioneer's license, they can't find anywhere to put their apprenticeship for 6 months because no auctioneers want to. 6 months isn't enough time to learn. You know, it really probably does take 2 years. When you're done with your apprenticeship after 6 months, you realize, hey, I don't know enough yet to really go out and be successful at it. You know, it took me 20 years to learn how to figure out what I was doing.
And you were born into it.
And I was born into it, and I'm proud to be doing it. But it's a long grind. Just like anything else, you know, you sit around and look at all these other top producing agents and auctioneers. How did they get there? Well, they never quit. That's the one thing. Yeah. They just kept at it, and eventually it will take off. But it's fairly simple to get your auctioneer's license in Tennessee.
Well, it's obvious you're very passionate about it.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm going to wrap up by asking tips for realtors. You've given a lot, but what would be your final tips to realtors about how they can learn more about the auction process, how they can get involved and not be afraid of it?
Yeah, the first thing would be just go out and interview an auctioneer. Look at somebody that you think, I would like to associate with this person, this company. They look like they've got their act together. They don't look like they're just, you know, part-time or halfway into it. They are full-on auction company. I'm very critical of other auction companies or auctioneers that dabble in everything. Hey, you're going to be an expert, you got to pick one thing, you know, and it's being an auctioneer and real estate broker in Tennessee, Western Kentucky. That's all I know how to do, and I'm the best at it, I think. But find somebody you can associate with, that you can trust your reputation with, because we know how hard it is to get a client, to nurture them, and then to be able to, well, now I got to hand it over to somebody else, that you got to be able to trust them, that they know what they're doing. And it's just show up, interview them, go to other auctions, check out their digital footprint online, see how much business they're doing, and see if it's something that you would want to be associated with. And then look for someone that's going to be transparent. I've learned that over the years. Years ago, decades ago, I'd say that, you know, a lot of auctioneers, they weren't welcoming of realtors, didn't want realtors to know what was going on. And it's just mind-blowing that would even be a thought. Find somebody that's going to be transparent. It's going to be let you be a part of the transaction from start to finish. You can make a lot of money if you refer sellers to auction. You can make a little bit of money if you represent a buyer, and just don't be afraid of asking questions. There's a class that I teach for TAR that is always packed. The room is always full. And when it's over, it's just people have dozens of questions after it's over. And I love just teaching realtors what they need to know so you can sell more properties at auctions. Many times an auction can solve a seller situation easier than a listing can, but nobody understands how auctions work. So you're very hesitant to refer someone to an auction when you yourself don't even understand it. So I love just to educate realtors on how the auction works, how it can benefit their client and themselves, obviously by getting paid. And that's the best thing, is don't be afraid to ask questions and go do a little bit of research and call me when you're ready.
Especially now that you're seeing it in the MLS. I think it's very important to make sure you understand it. And I'm so glad you mentioned the class, because I wanted to give that plug. Mm-hmm. I think it's important, if you have the opportunity to take that class, to jump in there and take it. And we're going to look at bringing that back to our conference.
Yeah. Gone. Auctioneers and Brokers. It was a clever name. I can't remember exactly what we call it, but I think we've taught it maybe 600. It is insane how many people have taken it over the years, and the amount of people that have gone on to leverage an auction. There's no right way or a wrong way. There's no wrong or right answer other than whatever's in the seller's best situation. And many times the auction can be the easiest, simplest way to get the most money, and realtors can still look like the hero, and it works well for everyone.
That's awesome.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing all of that. I think it's fabulous to be able to expand our knowledge on that.
Absolutely. Thank you for letting me come.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Thank you all for joining us today on the RealTea podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and colleagues. Then visit tnrealtors.com to submit your questions and topics for future episodes of the RealTea podcast. Thanks for listening.